Is it possible to return to running after ACL in 12 weeks? Well, in this video, we're going to be looking at the exact criteria you need to make sure you're safely able to return to running and what that looks like. As a hockey player, when you're looking to return to running, there are three key things you need to make sure are in place so that you can safely return to running. The first one is strength at length. You need to make sure you've got sufficient strength at end range so that when you're running, you are not putting yourself at risk. Strength at length, here we're talking about hamstring strength in particular. And have you got the strength at full range of motion so that you can control swing phase, and when that foot hits the ground, you've got really good stability and control. Other things that are really important are things like getting full strength and extension. So the prior phase to this, in the kind of earlier rebuild phase, we must make sure we've got sufficient quadricep strength to reduce the risk of re-injury, but also to lay the foundation for multi-joint strength exercises and running later. Number two, we've got the capacity ceiling. If your capacity ceiling of the muscle groups is sufficiently involved in running and not in place, you're again going to put yourself at risk. There are some key markers that we need to hit here before going back to running so we can be really confident in those muscle groups have got the capacity to tolerate increased running volumes as we go through. And we're going to look at what muscle groups those are in just a second. Thirdly, then, it's speed symmetry. It's looking at, have you got good posture, control, and overall technique when you're doing the running action, when you're doing running technique drills prior to just starting to go back into full speed running. It's got to be a gradual progressive system. And if you haven't got that speed symmetry, it's likely you're going to put yourself at high risk of injury when you do go back to full speed running. So going to be covering those three key things in just a second. Now, what do we mean by strength at length, first of all? Strength at length is strength at full extension, full range of motion, not just inner range, but outer range too. And when we're looking at things like a single leg bridge, for example, we want to make sure that you've got really good isometric strength and eccentric strength at full extension, not just in sort of inner range. Other things we're looking at here are things like single leg max strength, so things like a single leg press. We can also include double leg exercises like back squat in this category, but making sure that through full range of motion, we are strong. And a usual benchmark here is 1.5 times body weight. So a 80 kilo athlete should be able to squat 120 for a single rep. Having said that, we can also reverse engineer that from training data. So if you're doing 5 reps or 3 reps, you can also predict what that 1RM would look like as well. So you wouldn't have to do a full 1RM just to be able to get that information. But full strength is super, super key. If we're hitting body weight only, well, that's a problem because when we are running, we're hitting 3 to 5, sometimes even 7 times body weight of load going through the lower limb. So we've got to make sure we've got the strength to tolerate that first. And people underestimate just how much forces or how many forces are going through the body when you're running. Number two, then, capacity ceilings, a couple of key muscle groups: the calf, the hamstring, the adductor, and the trunk. If those muscle groups haven't got the capacity to tolerate high volumes of running, again, it's going to break down, and that's going to impact speed symmetry. So we've got to make sure we've got strength, capacity, and speed symmetry all in place. So if we've got the strength, we've hit those markers, we've hit capacity. So in other words, we've hit 20 to 25 reps on a number of key exercises. We can then look at speed symmetry. And speed symmetry is making sure we've laid the foundations in the earlier phases of reintroduction to walking, reintroduction to full hip control, postural control, A marches, then A skips, and progressive technique based drills like that. We can then make sure all three things are in place. We've got strength and length, capacity ceiling, speed symmetry. Now, this all sits in the middle here of this model, the ACL accelerator model that I take clients through. In phase two, that's where we need to have ticked off these key markers, and then we can introduce hockey-specific running and agility. Now, initially, that's going to be linear, but then we're going to begin to incorporate high-speed, multi-directional movements that are relevant to the demands of the game itself, not just random running, but making sure we're doing specific skill-based movements. Okay, so within the model itself, these are some of the key criteria. This is the criteria that I use with clients week in, week out. And in phase two here, these are the criteria that we need to have ticked off before we can be confident we can begin to introduce linear running. So we need to be able to do 10 single leg squats to a box under really good control with less than a 15% asymmetry. We need to be able to do balance and proprioceptive based exercises and eyes open and eyes closed for this. For eyes open, it's 43. For an eyes closed based movement, it is 9 seconds. And then we've got a bridge and a calf raise, at least 20 reps. Anything less than that, you are not ready to get back to running yet. And now, ideally, I elevate that to 25 if we can achieve it, but 20 is an absolute bare minimum. Then we've got a side plank of 30 seconds on each side. And finally, we've got that strength at length measure of a back squat 1RM and a single leg press 1RM of 1.5 times body weight. And again, less than 15% asymmetry here. Now, 15% is the absolute bare minimum, but ideally this should be under 10. And as you can see, as you go through the different phases, this should be getting less and less and less. And under 5% asymmetry is the kind of gold standard, but the scores themselves also massively important. Asymmetry alone is not the only thing. We have to consider the scores themselves and the asymmetry between both sides. So if you can achieve all of those things, then you've got really good confidence that you're able to introduce linear running here. But if, for example, you're only hitting a 1 times body weight single leg squat or a back squat, you're only doing 5 to 10 calf raises, you've got 50% asymmetry on a single leg squat, do not start running. You have to make sure these things are in place first. And then what we've got is some exercises and kind of how this all fits together. So finally, we've got assess, don't guess. This is the most important thing of all, is assessing these different movements as we've just seen on that checklist, so you know exactly you are ready to go. So as an example here, we've got our single leg bridge based movement. Here, 20 to 25 reps is the standard required. If we haven't got the capacity to hit that yet, then you're not able to get back to running. So make sure we can hit 20 to 25 reps. Okay, number 2, strength at length. We've got something like a barbell back squat or a single leg press. Either are fine, but we need to be able to get full range, so strength at length, and being able to achieve a 1.5 times body weight target here. As I say, if you're a 100 kilo athlete, that would be 150 kilos. If you're a 60 kilo athlete, that would be 90. Then we've got single leg control. So we've got making sure we've got that symmetry at speed symmetry, being able to control for 10 reps on both sides, really good control, really good strength, and no major asymmetry. Bear in mind, this is the max reps. So if you are able to get to 25 on one leg and you're able to get to 10 on the other, that wouldn't be a pass, because although you've hit 10, there's a major asymmetry there which you need to address. So you need to make sure both are within 10 to 15% of each other. Then finally, more speed symmetry. We've got things like A skips, postural holds, and all of these things are aiming to improve your posture in those kind of positions, particularly with front side mechanics. Okay, so I hope that's given a good overview of the key requirements for getting back to running. Now, this system has helped a number of athletes now that I've worked with in as little as 12 weeks get back to running, because you've got those key criteria, you've got a structure to follow. And if you want to learn exactly how I do that, I'm going to pop a link down below which shows you a masterclass of how I approach ACL rehab for hockey players. So if you're interested, click the link below and you can check that video out.